Hello, folks. Welcome to the next installment for the International Euphonium Summit. I am Nicholas Haffter von Heide, host and owner of Farm for Dreams, and I have with us for his second part in the series, Living History series, Micah Dominic Parsons from the UK. Welcome back.
Hello, it's great. It's great to be back. I'm just blown away. I'm watching your feed, and I'm really bad at social media. I need somebody to teach me how to use it. But I'm following all your stuff. I'm just blown away by your energy and your drive, and the amount you're doing. It's for me, it's like a 10-person job, and you're doing it with just yourself. It's absolutely incredible what you're doing.
Well, it's, just being able to speak to artists from around the globe, literally. I think we have 11 countries already covered so far.
Wow.
I think 11, maybe 12 or 13. And that's composers, international artists, to organizations, to. Oh, it's just amazing. And it's not really a sigh of exhaustion. It's a sigh of like just astounding, like awe of the ability to be able to put this on for those that are watching this. And by the way, like I do on almost every single video here, go back and check out the podcast. An hour of content for just this one alone. Really rich. We talk about the unknown, the new piece, the unknown soldier, and then so many other really, 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 really cool things. And then dive
Yes,
into Micah's life, coming home and getting to talk about regret and initiative, determination.
it's really interesting, these words which perhaps we hear all the time, being an inspiration or having the drive or being self-driven or motivated, all these little key words which we seem to hang on these days. I often wonder, how we can encourage people to grasp what these concepts are and what it means, and how we encourage the next generation of today to be steadfast, to be headstrong, to not be afraid of what people think, and to grab opportunities or to create opportunities from nowhere, and have that confidence and courage to do that.
It's really interesting you bring that up, and I'll just share a little bit with on this side of the whole inner workings of the International Euphonium Summit. I started this with nothing, everyone. Like, I mean, I have my own personal experiences with. Okay, so going back, so that's my experience. I was in the first cab band and military band, euphonium player. Got to see some stuff. Got to do a lot of really cool things. That was a couple decades ago, and coming on to social media, and in the euphonium world, we like to interconnect with each other, but as with almost everybody on social media, we connect with someone, we don't really interact except for, a like or a heart or, a share or, a recommendation would be amazing, right? But we don't really connect. With that said, me being me, I didn't have every connection in the book. I love connecting with people, but going from zero in with this idea of this International Euphonium Summit, and then it started out with just the Euphonium Summit 3+ months ago. Of okay, well, I've got my first person that's really interested in being part of it. Well, what's it mean? Where can it? What can I do? Where can I? Who can I talk to? Who can? Who do you even want to be part of it? And that self doubt is like, no one's going to want to participate. 11 countries later, tons of artists. Oh, wait, I've got one better. Check out your chat, Micah. I'm going to send something really quick. And I've done it on one other episode. This is not everyone, by the way. I'm quite a few short. But that's who we have so far on this series.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is wow. And you've got, oh, wow. Wow. I I'm not sorry. I'm absolutely lost for words. It's the only time you ever get a gathering of euphonium players like that is for like ITEC, International Tuba and Euphonium Conference. Um, what you have done and is just mind blown, and it'd be in my personal opinion, it'd be stuff beyond my wildest dreams. What you're doing, you're bringing people together, not only resources for a select group of people, but resources which can apply to everyone. With an interest in not only the euphonium or the tuba or composing, but brass playing in general. And do you know what I think that is so important, and especially as these resources are all going to be available, not just for a week and then it's gone, but forever. And it's mind blowing, because there'll be people, and you can't think of it now, but there'll be people in maybe 60, 70 years time who come and listen to this, and they're really interested to read and hear the perspective of euphonium players from from our era. I know at the minute YouTube is really popular with people uploading videos from the 60s or the 50s or the 40s, or the newsreels from the Second World War have gone online, and the amount of views that they get, and often wonder, will the impact be felt now, or will this be a continuing impact for many years? And I feel for me that this will be something which impacts for many years to come and into the future.
I mean, going back and diving into the history, and we do cover Micah's history with his great grandfather Harper, and the storied history of his area where he lives currently and where his family has resided for generations, it seems. We cover that in the podcast before and on the first series, and diving into the history, the background, and just the storied histories that we all share that may not. You brought up a really good point, is that we don't know what we are capable of doing until we like jump out and try something, or even the worst thing that I can hear is no, or maybe not this time, or not feeling well, or just, if you have a passion to go do something, do it.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Just getting your butt in motion to going to do something, and take that drive. See where it goes. Yeah, it may be a dead end, but at least you don't have any regrets. Or as like the Snickers commercial goes, no regrets. Uh, so I just, it's such a fantastical opportunity. Yeah, that may not be a word. Don't kill me, English majors. But as in, this world is so dynamic, and not just euphonium players and performers and composers, but this world in general. Like, we can really, in a way, shrink it down with stuff like this to create that bridge to walk into South Africa, to walk over the oceans to Australia, to walk over to the oceans of, the UK, to China, to Canada, to Brazil, to Peru, to Hawaii, to, just, it's amazing. We don't have to travel over, physically, but emotionally, musically, spiritually, to get to know. And the you brought this up as with the band of New Zealand, the military band of New Zealand, in the the podcast of this episode. You talk about how the battles in Australia, New Zealand, and the inner workings, the pieces of music that have been written and composed and influenced by, to know that, we're not alone, but we're also in such a, I think when people say, well, who am I? in this world of not just the musician, but as an individual, you are unique. You are solely unique, and the gift that you have, the passion that you may develop at one point, can move mountains or oceans for that matter. Look what we're doing here. We've literally bridged the gap across the pond from the US to the UK. There's nothing there's no bridge except for this digital connectivity that has transcended the planes. And whether you're watching now, in the 2023 or 2021-53. Yeah.
They'll have something other than the internet. It'd be like something you connect into your brain or something, and it just gives you all the information. You never know.
Well, speaking of that, like kind of the Matrix ideal, right? Plugging
Yeah.
in all this information and to see what would happen with all the composers, artists, musicians in you go into the Matrix and watching Keanu Reeves take all these fighting styles, and it's a mixture of like two fighting styles, and he makes it his own. And that's what this next generation and those that are watching have the ability to do. And going like I think of this as like when like a customizable card game, right? Like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Magic or whatever, and you have all these different cards, or even a baseball team or a rugby team or a cricket team. You have these personal dynamics, and seeing what team could work together to make something even better.
Do you know what? You make a really good point there. I mean, when I was studying, somebody once said to me, go for as many lessons as you can, learn from everyone. There is something that you can learn from every individual. And so what did I do? I went for lessons with, Steve Cooper and Trevor Groom and Steve Mead and David Charles. And I wanted lessons with Gary Curtin and stuff like that. And what you eventually end up doing, you take a bit of each person that you like. So I like his high range, or I like how he lyrically pulls things, or I like his sound. And you like you said with the fighting styles from the Matrix, you form your own style from all those people, from all those influences. And it can even be people who aren't well known, such as somebody sitting next to you in your band who's just a phenomenal player and just really humble. And and you can take it from other musicians as well. And one musician I remember, I was doing a gig in France, and it was part of Anzac Day, and this really top. We're playing in the evening, and this top musician from, I think it's the Sydney Opera House or orchestra, he was playing a trumpet solo, and he was playing with the brass band before I was, and his name is Paul Goodchild. Absolutely phenomenal musician. And me as being a bit younger then, I was absolutely nervous. I was playing up against this incredibly experienced musician who had this incredible trumpet sound, who he was just solid. His nerves were solid. And then I had to follow him on, and afterwards he was so complimentary about my playing, and we sat down and we had an evening together where we were watching music and talking. And from just that one concert, he went back to Australia and I went back to England from France, and we developed this friendship. And when COVID hit, he sent me, I said to him, look, I'll go be honest, I want to learn more about your musicality. I want to learn more about what makes you tick. And it eventually came back. He sent me all his CDs, a load of books, all for free. And going back to regret, I was hoping in COVID that we could have recorded something, but unfortunately he was diagnosed with cancer and passed away last year. But one musician, even though he's not with us, he still has that impact on me. I've got all his CDs which he sent to me for free, and he's on YouTube. And every time I see him play, I'm switched back to that moment where he stood up and he played this incredible solo. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to follow on from this. Yeah, he was so encouraging, and he put, as an experienced musician, put his arm around me and supported me through that experience. And there's the video of me playing my solo and he sat third man down playing cornet, and just, I don't know, there's something there about that individual who had a big impact. He played the trumpet, didn't, knew a bit about the euphonium, and was conducted, but what I learned about what it means to be a musician from him was incredible. So yeah, going back to your point again about, pushing for your goals and, being open as an individual to learning, and learning from people around you, which will ultimately only have an impact on yourself. It'll help you develop as a person. So it's an interesting analogy with the baseball team. So I'll have to use that.
Yes, please do. I think, getting into the geek side of the world, not just euphonium geeks and euphonium nerds, but into like the Comic-Con and the science fiction, or the gaming world, and seeing how all this works. I mean, you get into the video. I mean, you go into the video game world, and you pick, like, let's say FIFA World Cup, and you have a specific player or a specific team, or NCAA for those in the US. You have a specific year with a specific team is hot, has all the all-star players, and you can win with them, right? And so you have all these winning artists, all these winning composers, all these amazing ideas, intentions, passions, purposes, and you get them all together, like on the International Euphonium Summit. You get to hear all their experiences and then go, what can happen? What can I do with this? And you can literally spin gold from this and create something so unique that, through your own will and effort, I can't wait to see what someone does with any or all of this content and becomes the world's greatest euphonium performer, or world's greatest composer who can write all this stuff because they heard all this stuff.
I think if a small segment of this gets through to somebody and they do something with it, then it'd be worth it. And I think,
absolutely.
Looking at COVID, maybe COVID was a time where I learned about the power of technology, the power of connections. I'd realised it earlier on with, being able to contact euphonium players over Facebook and social media. But COVID for me really showed me that how an impact of a video online like this can have. I mean, I was watching all the interviews with Stephen Mead did, and I was watching all the interviews of Besson, and I was watching Shona White, famous horn player, and her interviews. And that's just a small segment, but every day something was going out for COVID with these interviews. And you know what, the stuff I learned, and these online performances and these online interviews are still there now. And I'll go back to them now and I'll refer to them, and there's always something new you pick out. There's always something that captures your imagination, which maybe you've not seen before. So I think these videos are really important, are really a resource that can't be underestimated.
Absolutely, especially for the younger generation, I think. And going into, like, I'm curious, so going back and kind of recapping and going back over your first in the series, so we're not too far removed from the journey. What was it like when your parents first sat down into your first, like, professional concert with the brass band, especially with the Jaguar Land Rover, which is now the Brass Band of Central England?
I think there's lots of memories. So a lot of my early performances, my dad and my mum were around, and my dad would always give me an honest reflection. If it was bad, he would say it's bad. And when we had arguments as teenagers, and their dads do, and the main points of the arguments would focus about, you missed this note in Song of the Brother, and you need to be thinking about that note. And it always somehow, so it could be even to do with family life, but it will always come back to music and a note that I'd missed. And I was really lucky that, you know, a lot of my early performances I had my dad there and guiding me. So performances of Song of the Brother and Home on the Range and Ransom with the Fellowship Band. And then moving on to Jaguar Land Rover, and even in my days in the city of Coventry, where I played a piece by Paul Lovett Cooper called "Neath the Dublin Skies," and I won the soloist prize, the soloist prize, and for the best soloist in that section. And my old man was sat next to me as part of the band accompanying, so that was really exciting. And I think you know, some of my earliest memories, because they'd heard me play the cornet well, it was always that the performance was a learning point onto the next performance. It was always for me and for my old man, I think, my father, sorry, I should say.
No, that's okay.
A point for development. I was never, no, in those days, I was never, and even to a degree, I was never happy with how I played. You know, I'd do a solo and it could have been right. You could have done that better. You could have. And my old man would be my confidant, and because he knew the stuff, and he would agree or disagree. And you know, lots of people would say, "Oh, you played really well," and all of this, but you needed somebody who gave you the truth. And my old man was very, very, very good at giving me the truth if it was very bad. And so, yeah, to be fair, my journey for a young person has almost been a more traditional route than what a young person would go through today. So traditionally, a young person would get introduced to a brass instrument through school, or whereas I got introduced to it through my dad in the Salvation Army, and then my dad's contacts and all of that. So I've had more an adult introduction to banding rather than a young people's. I've only played with one, you know, young person's band, or two, sorry. But I've never done that before. I've always played with adults, which has been really interesting. But yeah, I think the formative years were really interesting. I mean, with my battered Sovereign 967 and my 4AL, and going back to the British Open, my old man bought me a 5BL Dennis Wick mouthpiece at the British Open, my first British Open in 2011, or no, sorry, 2010, with Peter Graham's On the Shoulder of Giants. You know, everything was battered. I had like recordings from like the 60s and to listen to, and no music, all sheet music was scattered things which have been handed down to me. And yeah, it's been a really interesting development, especially when I talk to people who are a similar age who have come up through school and done that sort of stuff.
I'm just looking back at to make sure I heard that right. So you got your first Dennis Wick at that 2010 British Open Championship?
Yeah, so I've been using a 4AL prior to that, and I felt that I needed something smaller so I could play high, as you do as a youngster without any knowledge and without any. So I decided I set my heart on this 5BL mouthpiece, which I'd looked through the little catalogue at, and that was that was the mouthpiece I played on for a good number of years. And he bought me that at he decided he's going to take me along to my first British Open, and bearing in mind he's in his 80s now, so he was in his 70s then. And he sat with me. We listened to all the performances of On the Shoulder of John. And then he bought me. He said to me, "I'm going to buy you a mouthpiece." And within our family, it's usually my mother who does all the organising of presents and events and stuff. But my dad, he bought me this 5BL mouthpiece, and yeah, I don't know, just something about that day was so special. And this 5BL mouthpiece that my old man bought, the first thing that he bought me, related with my instrument and stuff like that. It was, yeah, just special memories.
That's awesome. So with that special memory, you know, and it's really fascinating because we cover this in the podcast as well. You know, today's September 7th, at the time of this recording, which is 2 days before, you know, Micah's, let's see, that would be 13th anniversary of that moment.
Yes.
And so the British Open Championship is this weekend, at the time of this video. And we cover that in the podcast beforehand and through this. So it's really cool that you have that memory, and that moment with your old man, your dad, your father. What, you know, it makes me wonder, like, and we sort of touch on this topic in the podcast, but with all the new commissions, and I'm curious, Downpour, have you sent your dad a copy of, what it's sounding like right now?
No,
Or are you too nervous about that?
so he knows, he's heard the electronic sound file. Now I'm just going to switch the light on so you can see me. I can see myself getting dark. I'll be like just a blackout in a minute.
Right. So just to let everybody know, yeah. So he is literally in the UK, and I'm sitting here in middle of Texas, and it's still crazy hot here. Today's temperature is like, oh wow, it's already 106. It's crazy hot. 101 to 106 with the heat index. I wish it was a little bit cooler, especially in the evenings. There in the UK, bring that this way. Oh,
To be honest with you, it's been absolutely boiling in the UK. In my little classroom where I am, it's been like a sweat box.
oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, it's been so hot. Like, and we're all complaining. The teacher at work that we didn't have this sunny weather in the holidays, and now we're back at school and we got this sunny weather and we can't do anything with it. So it's we're all complaining about that at the minute.
Well, yeah, I think we've already dove into the holidays definition for those in the United States, because it's such literally a foreign idea that we don't get to take part of, because we have summer, but most of, I think a lot of the parents end up having to work and not be able to take a break like a holiday like y'all have everywhere else in the world, apparently, because it's not just in the UK, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing talking about that, because even the kids, even the students, sometimes they have summer school, but a lot of those in the music world, in the high school bands, have summer band, and so it's like, what's that break schedule like? And we really don't have one yet. And I think I told you about the idea of future summers here.
Yes.
Okay.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So I've got. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Do you know this concept of a holiday? It allows me to get out of this routine and get back with my euphonium. And if anyone was a fly on the wall, they'd see me in my practice room, but furiously going at it and looking at stuff. And it's, for me, it's a privilege that I get 6 weeks off. Not many people would get that elsewhere, and I know lots of people who would work through the holiday. So not taken away from you guys, but it's a real privilege to have this break.
Well, I mean, we cover this quite a bit in the pre-discussion on the podcast of this, because Micah is the principal euphonium of the brass band of Central England, and he has a really good friend that the band is actually performing at the wedding for in a couple weeks here, and just preparing those pieces. We even talked to yesterday. We talked with the second chair baritone for the Corey band, Dr. Joel Collier, and the level of execution that these bands, these brass bands, go through, like Micah's, and with the Corey, with Hammonds, with Leyland, with all these amazing brass bands that are even competing this weekend. Just in general, it's mind blowing, the work ethic. Because are those paid gigs? I keep forgetting to ask. Are these paid gigs or not so much?
So for the band will be paid a fee, but the musicians within the band don't receive a fee. And that's generally for all championship section bands. There are a few bands who will get fees. So your principal player will be on, a certain retainer fee. That's not so common these days. A lot of bands, we're all amateurs within the UK. That's how we're described, because a lot of what we do, even though we have intense rehearsal schedules. So, for example, preparing for a contest, we could have, a number of weekends, both days, Saturday and Sunday, 5 to 8 hours each day rehearsing, and then in the weeks you've got your 2-hour, 3-hour rehearsals in the evening, and usually you'll end up doing about 30 to 40 rehearsals of about maybe 100 hours plus during a run up to a contest. So it can be quite intense, but for me, we're going into another contest prep, and for me, before we really hit it, I like to know my stuff inside out, and so it goes into stuff like having a routine. So today I've come home and I've done my preparation on these 2 new test pieces which we've received, and it's having that routine, that dedication and that concentration when you've done a full day at work. And my job, it's all very much, I spend my day talking to students, and I'm de-escalating and calming students down and preventing, escalations and violence within school and etc. And I come home and I have to reset the clock and really focus within that practice. And I think that's something that's built over years. It's the discipline and the self-discipline, and it's also the fear that if I know what will go wrong if I don't practice. And I think that's quite a strong, powerful force, and especially, within the section. So you've spoken about Joel, who's on second baritone at Corey, absolutely top band. But, within that section, there's 4 seats. So you've got a Principal Euphonium who leads the section, and they've got to set the example. You've got a second Euphonium who within a band really backs up the top Euphonium. He does all the donkey work, as we call it here in the UK. He does all the the bits that the top Euphonium doesn't want to do. I've got a really good guy called Kev Mackey, who's an ex, he's in the RAF. He'll kill me if I call him a wing commander. He was hard than that, but he was an officer in the RAF, and he served in Afghanistan. And there's a TV show on him, which is really interesting. He was a medical officer in Camp Bastion, and he sits second Euphonium next to me. Absolutely phenomenal player, has a great sound. And just does everything for me, does all the stamina work, does everything. And then, of course, you go down to your baritone, your first baritone, who has a completely different part most of the time. And then your second baritone, of course. And, these guys make up your section, and you get to know them really well through these rehearsals and stuff. And, the section which I sit on at the brass band of Central England, we've got Helen, who sits on first baritone, and a guy called Kev Whitaker, who sits on second baritone. And we've been a section for years. Like we go back, 4, 5, 6 years we've been playing together. And these guys, I know exactly when they're going to breathe. I know exactly how they're going to sound. I know how exactly they're going to play a phrase. And I think that's what makes it, being part of a band that you get to sit like on this privileged end chair. Kev, will be in his late 40s, 50s. Helen's a bit younger. Kev Whitaker will be a similar age, and you're trusted in that principal position. And when there's trust and when there's responsibility, you've got to be disciplined to put the work in behind the scenes and work twice as hard, so that when you do go and sit in that end seat, you're prepared and they know you've got it.
Phenomenal. Because, in the United States, I think with the audience and the euphonium artists and guests that we have on, a significant amount have been part of and privileged to enter the brass band world, whether in North America or South Africa or Germany or the UK, or even Australia. I think there's still a significant amount that don't understand or have seen or heard brass bands still today. And to get to know, we've delved into brass bands and the kind of the setup, and Micah did that very well here. They're in the front row, and the Principal Euphonium spot is the where the typical first clarinet player sits in a wind ensemble, or I think orchestra is the viola side, right?
Yeah, or it can be the cellos, where the
Yeah, yeah.
do you know these it's a really interesting thing. I mean, when I talk to people here in the UK who don't know about brass bands, I compare it to football teams and the leagues and stuff like that. And right in the Midlands area, we've got 13 championship section brass bands, and the names that everyone or most people have heard of is the GUS band, and the Desford band, and two really good bands. But when you look at our area compared to Yorkshire, when you've got Black Dyke and you've got Brighouse and all these, Hepworth and stuff like that, these really awesome bands, it's sometimes you want to go and play in the Yorkshire area as well. But it's a great hobby to be part of, and for me, it keeps me connected to my working class background. Music, brass bands was an opportunity within England for the average person, who didn't have a lot, who didn't, who paid a lot of rent on a house, who worked long hours to get involved in music. And for me, that's what I like about brass banding, that it brings people from all classes or societal backgrounds or cultures together into a disciplined environment where you're expected to work as a team. So often you get managing directors of a company, like I said, I'm just a manager within a behavioural provision in Coventry. The guy next to me was, Kev Mackey. He was high up in the Royal Air Force, and then you've got, Helen, who was a prison officer, and Kev Whitaker, who worked in an office. And then you got behind me on principal trombone, you got a vice principal of a music company, and so these people you put into contact with who normally within the workplace you would have no contact with, who's an office worker would have contact with their acting director or whatever, and so it brings people together and forces, puts class and sociology and political ideas to one side, and forces people to work together for the pure benefit of music.
You bring up an interesting perspective. As you're describing that, I think of our discussion that we had during the podcast form of this conversation, is that connection between the Greccan connection between astronomy and music, and right there with all the different musicians' backgrounds, those are the orbits of the different planets,
Yes.
and so we're all orbiting one another, and so it's really intrinsic.
When you start talking about those two sides of the analogy, I've thought about our connection with music and new commissions being about space and time, and the inspiration. I mean, here in the UK, it's getting dark, and in a short while, the stars will come out and they'll sparkle brightly, and you wonder, what's outside of our solar system, what is out there, and what is there a concept of music which I've never heard on it? Is there like a genre of music which is out there which perhaps I've never heard of, and what sounds are in space, and all these, and you look at the stars, and they're twinkling brightly, and that brings musical imagery and sounds to mind, and it's there is this intrinsic connection with music, with time and space, but on a very humanic level as well, humanist level.
Even internally.
Yes, I think for everyone, music has a different effect. For me, if I want to calm down or chill out, then I listen to Irish music. If I want, or brass band hymn tunes or slow melodies. If I want to have a bit of energy, then I'm going to listen to the heavy rock and roll, heavy metal brass band stuff. I mean, you could technically say brass bands were the original heavy metal, with all the instruments being made out of metal, but that's not the right terminology, is it? But it's, and especially I think for me, the times I listen to music are the evenings, and they allow time for reflection and time for, you know, just a connection, which you can't describe. It's this surreal connection, isn't it? It can take you on a journey. And that's what I love so much about music. I was listening to Celtic Women last night, and listening to a song called "The Parting Glass," which is the song which was famous before Auld Lang Syne comes along, and it talks about having a glass before departing, and talking about what may happen in the future, and time and stuff like that. And it's stuff like that when you get these times of quiet in the evening, that you can really listen to and delve a bit deeper into on a deeper level, rather than just purely listening.
It's really fascinating, this time we live in. Truly spectacular. I think this is a great segue into leading into our third in series for the Living History series for next time. So with that said, we're going to jump back over to the podcast format. So for those that haven't been privileged to take one of these segments in, there is the overarching podcast format for each of these episodes that we really dive deeper into so much. And this one is nonetheless, it's really dynamic to get to. It's such an honor. It's like the biblical quote, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." I love that quote. And with music, it's even more so, and get to sharpen each other's vision or perspective, or provide a different insight or experience. It gets to really refine one's view on life.
Totally agreed with that. Totally agree. It's music can influence life in unexpected ways.
Absolutely. So with that said, everybody, thank you for joining us for the International Euphonium Summit Living History series, with the second part of Micah Dominic Parsons in the UK and the brass band of Central England, as you ramp up into this next championship season coming on. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's just a privilege to be part of this exciting project, and to, sometimes in the day I try and keep away from social media, but seeing your updates and seeing you connecting our world together it's totally inspirational. Totally blows my mind, everything. And if I had half of your work ethic, I'd be happy.
I say the same with those that are in the brass band world, or even the colleagues that are still in the military band system or on the professional level, is not be able to work at things as much as I want to there, but this is one way I know that I can make a difference. And yeah, so with that said, I appreciate that, Micah. I'm so, with those that have the ability in the face and the chops and the hand strength left to do what you're doing, and to premiere and perform all these amazing works across the board, across the pond, across this globe. It's just phenomenal, because I get to put some pieces of the puzzle to work on the same board, and it's y'all that are making things happen musically. Y'all have to dive into those podcasts, because that's some really awesome material. Yeah, it's really awesome. So with that said, go over to the podcast, check us out. I'll leave the links below. You know what to do. If you don't, subscribe and share this out with the local music programs in your area, your kids' areas, and your family and friends throughout the globe. It's spectacular. And don't take my word for it. See all the artists that have been that are part of this amazing opportunity to share with you and the future of music. Serve well, everybody. Thanks.